The reason that I had both sets of parents, actually, it was both parents, it was my dad too, yelling at me during Thanksgiving, and they weren't really yelling, it was more like harshly criticizing, was around my son's ADHD. And that's something that, you know, was we were discovering and figuring out how to deal with. And I think it's really hard for anyone to hear that a child they care about is struggling in ways that require more intervention than just like being nice to the kid or trying to be more tolerant or impacting their academic performance. And it's really a little bit easier when a kid's younger and you can write off things as like behavior, but when it starts impacting their ability to read, their ability to make friends in social situations, the things that, make us part of this society and can have academic consequences, especially to high powered parents or people who have high expectations of their children from a young age, was really hard. So the reason that I was being criticized at Thanksgiving dinner after the whole debacle with the gift basket happened was around our choices when navigating ADHD. And I'll say that like it is very hard as a parent to hear for the first time that your child is struggling with something. And and personally for yourself, like, right, it can be like, wait a second, like, do I have ADHD? And I'll say it has not been not a comment that people have said, no offense, or with all due respect, you might be autistic. Like, that's a comment that's come across in many of my videos across multiple platforms. And what I'm trying to say is that it can be hard to hear your kid struggling. And the first response can often be defensiveness. And that's what I was really seeing at Thanksgiving dinner, was just like a kind of a disbelief of like, well, what do you mean he has ADHD? What do you mean he has this thing? What do you mean you need to spend $6,000 on neuropsych testing? Like, all these things are just like, what are you talking about? Because your initial response when a kid you care about is really struggling is like, they're going to be fine, right? And they are going to be fine. But these interventions are designed to help them at a young age overcome some of those challenges earlier so that they're fine earlier, and that maybe some things that end up developing into depression and anxiety don't end up developing. Like, there's all these things you have to do. But I think it's so hard to hear that a kid is struggling and then to deal with that. And that's what the conversation was at Thanksgiving, when I felt like I was just being bounced back and forth. And it just felt like two sets of parents dealing with a diagnosis of something that's hard to hear that could impact them the rest of their life. And then I wonder too if my parents are like, wait a second, is this why Jackie had X problem or Y problem? Or I just think it just like spirals, right? And that's why that Thanksgiving was terrible too, because I had just been like, I thought I was going to come into more supportive environment around what was happening with my son. And instead it was just like a lot of questions that I think are just coming from a place where a lot of people are when they first hear a kid is struggling, which is like defensiveness. Like, well, it's the school's problem. The school's not giving them the right teacher. This is the problem. Like, there's just all these things you can blame, when in reality, like, kids struggle, right? And now we know what to look for with kids. And I'm from education, so like, my background is in this, and my sister is also an educator. Her background's in this too, but it's like, it just, if you're not working with kids on a daily basis, if you don't see the effects of, this over time, it can just be hard to wrap your head around. And so that's why my parents were yelling at me at Thanksgiving, and not yelling, but like harshly criticizing choices that I was making as a parent. And that's why when the gift basket thing happened, I was already so upset about the gift basket thing. And then this on top of it. And then literally the other room had like my kids who were all over me. It was just like a completely overstimulated environment. And yeah, I just want to give some layers to what happened on that day, just to kind of really round out how terrible Thanksgiving was. And in retrospect too, my sister ended up not coming to that Thanksgiving. And I remember like talking to her 2 days later, and she was like, how was it? I was like, I actually can't talk about it with you. It was so terrible. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, yeah, I actually like can't talk about it. And then like the following Thanksgiving, I mentioned something about the gift basket, and my sister said something like, oh, you never told me what happened. You like had so much trouble processing it. What happened? And I was like, oh my God, I'm finally ready to talk about it. But like literally like that, that's how challenging it was, is that I neglected to tell people about what happened in the moment, aside from the people who were at the actual Thanksgiving.